mispronounced your name.
That's okay.
And it was also because my accent is too. But when I said your last name I messed up completely. And you said it's Knopic, and I said, but I used to say Mara because that's just kind of the New York in me.
Yeah.
But you said and you were so nice about it. You pulled me to the side because you didn't want to embarrass me. It was so nice at the movie theater. And you said, just to let you know, it's Knopic and it's Mara. And I was like, that's the nicest person who's ever told me that I fucked up their name ever. And I was like, welcome back, everybody, to the one-on-one feed. I'm back. Yeah, I've been out for a little bit on this particular feed, and Perry Nemiroff, John Roca have been holding down the fort, and that's kind of a lie. I've also been around. If you've been listening to the interviews that we've been doing from Collider Live, they've been living on this feed as well. So make sure you comment, rate, subscribe, do all that stuff every time you hear an interview, and tell us what you think of said interview. And if you're watching on YouTube, then great, you're doing that as well, and you're playing your part in helping us get more and more great guests. Today, I sit down face-to-face with the Inner Geekdom champion of the world, that's right, from the Schmoedown, Mara Knopic. Now, I've known Mara for just around 2.5, maybe 3 years, and I always just knew her from around the scene. She was my buddy's girlfriend, and we would have conversations, and she'd come to the Schmoedowns, and that was really, it was kind of casual conversations. And she told me that she'd want to compete in the Schmoedown, and my memory stinks. And finally, after about the third time that she told me, and almost 3 years later, she competed and she became a superstar in the league. She wound up beating Emma Fife, Rachel Cushing, Coy Jandreau, Mike Kalinowski, and Jason Inman, and really earning her way. She has earned every single victory that she has had. I was talking about it with Mike Kalinowski the other day, and just how much of an amazing competitor is, how she earned her shot, how she just fought and earned her victory into your hearts, and to just earn the respect of this entire league. But she's so much more than that. She's so much more than just the Inner Geekdom champion. I got a chance to sit down with her and learn a lot about her history, about splitting atoms. Well, what's that? Yeah, it's exactly what you think. She's a scientist, ladies and gentlemen, and she talks about it in depth, and you'd be like, well, I don't know, am I going to be able to keep up? Yeah, you can, because she is such an intelligent woman. She is so funny. She is so, she's kind of dry wit about her, and it's just an engaging conversation to just hear her, where she was, her journey, how she got here, how she met Dan Murrell, how they got together. It was a fun conversation. I learned a lot more about my friend, and I think you will too. I know you already like her, but you're going to like her even more now. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to One-on-One with me, Kristian Harloff. That's my name. And I was out for a little bit, but we had some great one-on-ones on the channel by Perry and Roca, and Ryan Satin just put one out too. So I'm excited about what this feed has become. And if you're listening to it on audio, make sure that you download it on Apple Podcasts or subscribe it or rate and do all that stuff in Podcast One. And if you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for watching us. But you're not here to watch me. You're here to you want to hear about my guest. And if you are a fan of the movie trivia Schmoedown, then you should know absolutely right away who this person is. She came onto the scene like a earthquake, just causing havoc. And she is my friend. She is someone who has really elevated the Schmoedown to a whole new level. And I love talking to her, and I love who she is as a person. That's why I wanted to talk to you guys about her. It is the one and only, the amazing Mara Knopic.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
I forgot the belt. It's in the other room.
It's over there. It's okay. Well, this is more than just a Schmoedown podcast. This is all about you podcast, because we know each other, but I don't know you that well. I mean, not too well to where an hour worth of a conversation and be like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know that about you.
That's true. I
learned that about stuff when I sat down with Roca.
I loved that one.
He was, I mean, you know John. He's just the most raw, honest dude. He just emotions on the sleeve, and we just went and we just talked, and that's what happens on this show. So, and I'm glad that you're doing it too, because you and I'll start off right at the bat here too. My I've had a rough year this year.
Yeah.
And you were one of the people that really helped me in more ways than you know. When I saw you I'd just gotten back from Florida after my brother had passed, and I saw you, and you're very kind. You have very kind eyes, and
Thank you.
Well, you do. And you said to me, You and Dan, because Dan is another. And I'm proud to say that Dan and I have been friends now for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And you guys, anytime I see you at the movies, we talk, shoot the shit. But that was a different day when I walked in, and you comforted me, and it was you just lent a bit of support. And I told you that in person, and now I'm telling you that to everyone else too. So thank you again.
I mean, I think everyone at some point in their life has dealt with loss, and some closer than others. So everyone can empathize with what grief is, even though everyone's grief is going to be unique to them. Right. So I'm glad that something I said could give you a measure of comfort. It did. And isn't it crazy, too, because you just don't know how sometimes, and you don't know how to approach people sometimes. You don't know how they're going to react. You don't know how, because before that had happened to me, I also had another close friend of mine whose sibling had passed, and you don't know what to say. Yeah. You don't know if they want to talk about it. I know someone even closer around where I live that someone had a passing, and I never said anything, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know if I wanted to approach it to that person, because it was like, do I want to bring that up again? They seem like they're in a good mood. Is it? But the other flip side of that is maybe they like talking about it. Maybe it helps them. It's just weird though, because you don't know. It's just so many people are so different. Yeah, I mean, I'm that person. I laugh inappropriately at funerals. Yeah, and it's just I don't know why. It's the only way that I can emotionally process what's happening, because I'm not a crier. Yeah. So I cackle. Why is that? Why do you think? Just things just growing up, or? Yeah, I think a little bit of it is cultural. Yeah. I have a varied ethnic background, so. Which is? Middle Eastern and Mediterranean primarily. Wow. Yeah. Where's it? And from mom, dad, just both. Yeah. Both. Okay. Yeah. Well, and then obviously, it's a blended religious family as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of how you emote and how you deal with people. And so, yeah, I think that somehow I've just turned to processing that into laughter. Yeah. Are you brought up religious? Yeah, I was brought up in a very Jewish household. Okay. And I'm still proudly very Jewish. Yeah. I was brought up in a Catholic household. I didn't know that. I was. And my mom, although she listens to all this, is not going to be happy. I think that the more and more I go into religion, I think that I can clarify myself as agnostic. Mm-hmm, yeah. I just don't know. I don't want to pretend that I know, but I don't doubt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's so much out there that I just feel silly to say, well, that's definitely not true, or that definitely is true. So I don't know it's just growing up Catholic. That's never how I was taught. Yeah. So fighting through it. But you still believe very much so in religion? Yeah. I would say no. Okay. But I think that it doesn't matter which religion as a label gets it right. I think that if I behave in a way that is good and that is earnest, and that I keep myself accountable to what I think is good, that whether it's a God that we've heard of or not heard of, hopefully if there's something like a pearly gate that because I've lived a good life, that it's like, oh, you were Jewish, but we don't care. Come on in. and if not, if you had to be a member of a certain club in order to get in, then that's probably not where I want to be anyway. That's true. And we hope that there's there's a place out there. And it's funny to me because sometimes I'm on both sides of it. I think sometimes we create stuff where we want to believe that if we go and that there's this great thing waiting for us. We hope that's going to be the case. And there's the kind of drastic side of it of it's it. You go to sleep, that's it. You're done. It's just and that is a realistic point of view because who knows on the other side what's really there or not. But I just think there's just too many things in the world that point to not just here. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm a scientist, and normally, I'm very evidence driven. But one thing I know for sure is that I can't see an atom, but I know it exists. Right. So that's the only thing that allows me to have even a glimmer of recognition that something more fantastic than I can comprehend in this incarnation of life can possibly exist. But I'm also not hanging my hat on it either. So I would say I kind of fall into your camp in a way. Yeah, there's something out there, but I don't know what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about the science thing, because that to me, that's it. Because I know, I mean, for those of you who are watching this because you're Schmoedown fans, one of the things that you have coined is the brown dwarf star, which no one knew what it was until you.
I'm really glad that the Google searches really peaked
I'm sure
after
it
my
did.
first match.
I'm sure it did after that scene, because I didn't know what the hell you were talking about, and then I Googled it. We made a damn shirt out of it, and it's become one of your monikers now.
Yeah.
Tell me about this fascination with science, how you got involved with it, like how you became a scientist. That's not just going to go, oh yeah, I'm a scientist. Like how does one become a scientist in your?
Well, some people fall into it, much like I did. I was a little aimless, getting ready to, like in college and after high school, just kind of going through the motions of like, I don't really know what I want to major in. I don't really know what I should do. Because I think I varied myself too much in high school. I did too many clubs, too many sports.
Like what? Which ones? What clubs did you do?
I was a very proud member of the chess club.
Oh, okay.
The hacky sack club.
Yeah.
Culture club.
Wow.
Pun intended. Because, we had a lot of different kinds of people in the Chicagoland area, so we could share. Different sports at different times, swim team, basketball.
You did everything.
I did. My parents really wanted to cultivate a good college application.
Yeah.
And anybody that's seen my recent foray into movie fights will know that I was actually a nationally ranked debate student.
Yeah.
So, but I think that it made me, I couldn't focus on any single thing, and I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I actually ended up, how sometimes people just call you out of the blue for something you did a year or 2, 3 years ago.
Sure.
I got a call from a Navy recruiter who said, hey, by the way, you had to take this ASVAB in order to graduate high school. We just kind of looked at it and said, you might be good at this.
This is right after high school that this happened?
Shortly thereafter.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And so I just said, I'm not really interested. Military is not really necessarily what I have in mind for myself. But through talking with him, his wife was actually coming over to America from Japan.
Okay.
And I took Japanese throughout upper junior high school and high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So at the time,
Do you speak fluent Japanese?
I mean, I'm still doing like my Duolingos and my Rosetta Stones. Yeah, like if I watch movies, I can usually pick apart because the verbs are easy. The conjugations are much easier than Spanish. So
It's me. I'm still trying to figure out English.
But it's really spotty.
Yeah.
I wish I had someone that I could speak with on a day-to-day basis. It would help.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach Dan. It's not going well.
No, that's what I mean. It's you say it's easy. It's just like, yeah, like I said, it's like, oh, that's Game of Thrones. Okay, I figured it out after 40 years on the planet. But there's so much inside of what you just said that I have so many questions now. The first, let's start with this because we'll get to the adventure of science. I'm not going to get away from that.
No, that's fine.
High school, because you're busy, you're doing sports, there's so many people you're meeting, obviously, because inside of the sports, there's a different type of person. There in the chess, I'm sure there's different types of people.
Yeah.
So you're learning.
There was not a lot of overlap.
Right, you're learning different types of people.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of kid are you? Did you go to the same high school the whole way through?
Yes, for high school.
In Chicago?
In the greater Chicago
Right,
area.
that area.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's where you lived? That's where your family raised you? That's where you're born?
I was born in Indiana.
Okay.
And most of the year, my dad worked in the city, but I went to school in Northwest Indiana.
Okay, so you went to Indiana, but you went to school, high school in the kind of the general area over there. So you go... You're there for 4 years in that one high school, and what kind of kid are you? Are you the popular kid? Are you the nerdy kid? Are you all of the above?
I would say that honestly, I wish that I could poll 50 people from my high school and just ask them what they thought of me, because I would say I generally got along well with most people because I'm a very agreeable person, and for the most part, all of the bullying I got when I was younger kind of. It disappeared, especially since I was a new student, a new transfer. Oh,
you transferred over. So the one school you got bullied at, you took off or left.
I was off and on homeschooled as well. So
up until how long?
Up until high school.
Up until high school. Oh, wow.
I was homeschooled for half of junior high.
What was the reasoning behind that? Did you?
Part of it was just that I had a tiger mom, and so I could learn more and do more without a curriculum from a school. I could exceed what the expectations were. Yeah. And also there was a lot of traveling involved with my parents' jobs from time to time. So, it was just easier. And also when I was younger, I think second grade was the first year I was homeschooled, and that was a little bit because of bullying. So because at the time, it was that all stops.
But that stops in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't specifically recall any traumatic high school bullying experiences. Okay. But I think though I kind of blended into my surroundings since, I was a band kid on this many days of the week. And then I was, a lab assistant this many days. I worked at the school radio station this many days.
That's crazy. Like, how do you have time? Do you have...
I almost brought my yearbook.
Because there's so much that you got going on, because like there's positives and negatives, I would assume, to that. The positives are, again, like you said, you meet every type of person.
Yeah.
You're not getting bullied because you know everybody. People knew who you were. You were able to. I'm sure you're a very smart individual in general. You're probably learning more and more every day from all these different things that you're doing. But the negatives, I would guess, you have to be exhausted.
Yeah. Oh man, my Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think, were marching band practice. It didn't end until 9:00, and I lived about 40 minutes away from school. So, because my parents sent me to a specific school, so we didn't move. They paid for me to go there, so I had to go home. So you're not getting home till almost 10:00, 2 nights a week.
And how are you getting home? Are you cabs or people or friends and stuff?
Usually my parents. I mean, before I was able to drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So 9:00, you're exhausted, and that's one day a week.
2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday.
2 days a week. Okay, so you got 2 days a week that you're doing that. And then, so when do you have a chance for a social life? Do you have a social life?
I mean, I would say that I definitely had people that were friends, but most of the time it was through school activities that we would socialize, because I lived so far away.
Right.
So, when I was 14, 15 years old, someone would have to drive 40 minutes to go get me at my house, or my parents would have to take me there, and so on and so forth. So, and this was before gas was really expensive, and people were still really hesitant to do that drive.
Right. But so you were really focused in on expanding your knowledge and everything. So and band, you're enjoying band there too.
Yeah.
Do you care? Because for me, I didn't. Well, that's not true. I had a relationship when I was in high school at 16 years old, and I took that relationship for a while into college, and then we were on and off, went back in. Any relationships during high school, or didn't worry about it until after you got out of high school?
I mean, nothing serious.
Right.
I dated, but and I found someone that was really, really great my last year, I think, of high school or so, and he was a nice human being, just a nice guy. My biological mother, passed away shortly after I got out of high school, and I came back to town, of course, for the funeral. And even though we hadn't been dating for a long time, he went to the funeral with me and sat with me. He was just such a nice guy.
That's nice, and you keep friendships that way too. Or even if you don't, it sticks with you. It's just a nice warm memory. Yeah. So that's cool. So, all right, you get in. So you're high school. You have so much going on. You get the call from the recruiter.
Yeah, and like I said, I wasn't really interested. He wasn't selling me a good pitch, but he asked if I would try to help his wife get acclimated to what is going to be a huge change from, city in Japan to kind of a little more of a rural suburb kind of area. And so we spent a lot of time together, and I would spend time with him in the summer, at the recruiting office. And I kind of became a little interested, and he said, well, just take this nuke test. Just see how you can do on that. And I did very well.
And what's a nuke test?
It kind of analyzes your overall science, reasoning, math.
Okay.
How much did you retain from high school? Did you take calculus or not? Had you already invested yourself in physics and fundamentals of any kind?
And you did pretty good on the test?
I did pretty good.
You're pretty good.
And so I started looking into it a little bit more. Google wasn't quite what it is now, but seeing what kind of opportunities it could lead to. Mm-hmm. So I decided, I was like, yes, I will let you guys give me a free education and teach me about neutrons and fissions. Right. And I don't regret it for a second, because I never would have pictured myself doing it. If you had said, oh, Mara, you'll grow up and you'll be a doctor of some kind, or you'll be a researcher at a lab, I would have said, okay, yeah, totally fine. But if you said, oh no, you're going to sit and split an atom every day, I would say, I don't think so.
Well, let's talk about that, because for the first thing, the call from the recruiter, the being around it and saying, okay, I'm getting interested now.
Yeah.
And then what's the first call when you say, I'm going to do this? You sign up.
Yeah. And
what do your parents say?
Well, actually, I have a strong military presence in my family. My grandfather was on the, what was it called now? I can't remember the name of his ship, but he was on a destroyer escort. I don't know if I don't want to
Your
speculate.
grandfather
I can't remember what
in World War II?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his brothers were also in the Navy. I don't know quite where though, because I never met them. I think they had died before I was born.
Okay.
Because my parents had me a little later in life, so I didn't know a lot of family members because they kind of drop like flies when they when they get that old. But
you knew when you signed your history that there was history of military background. So it wasn't that much of a surprise. Or maybe it still was, but they may be more accepting to it because they knew, or it wasn't accepting at all?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think that more of the traditional education experience was what would have been preferred, but it grew on them, I think. The Navy's like a fungus. Yeah. So I think my mom, I think she still had a picture of me from boot camp or something in her wallet, I think, at the time that she finally passed away. So I think she was eventually quite proud, but I didn't keep in touch very much at home. We're not a very especially close family.
Okay.
So
but you told them, and you let them know, and then so it was really knowing you and even hearing this story, pretty independent woman, and you're saying, I'm going to go do my thing. This is what I want to do. I'm interested in it, and you go. And what's the first journey? Where do you go?
You go to boot camp before you do anything else.
So tell me about boot camp.
Well, it was great because I think I was one of the only kids that drove themselves to boot camp.
Where is boot camp?
It's in the Chicagoland area.
It was in Chicagoland, okay.
Yeah. So everyone else was flying in. They were jet lagged, and I'm like, I've been sitting here for 6 hours. This is really boring.
You're just waiting outside for them to let you in.
Kind of,
It's amazing. It reminds me of have you ever seen Major League?
Yeah.
Like in the opening when all the players are just coming to the Willie Mays Hayes is just sleeping outside waiting.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's kind of exactly what you would expect, sort of. Imagine a room actually kind of about what you guys have here, with 44 double beds, like bunk beds.
Right.
So you sleep in a room with 87 other girls, which is just awful because I don't really get along with girls very well.
No one there? Did you get along with any of them there either? Did you make any friends there?
I mean, everyone I think got along quite well. Just at the offset, all of my closest friends have always been guys, usually, other than my sister.
So it's a little, so you're a little skeptical going in because in your history, it hasn't been the best with women. So, but you go in there. And you do make some friends, but it's and I guess you in that circumstance, everyone's kind of feeling the same. They're a little nervous, edgy, kind of wondering what's next. And then the gates open, and here come you're in the bunks. Do you automatically make friends right away, or do you just because you kind of you're part of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, cliques sort of form, not in a bad way, just as in, for example, there was a large number of people that were from the Philippines. So, of course, they're going to hang out with the people that they know that are familiar that also speak Tagalog. So they, you form little groups of people. But I would say everyone got along quite well. We did have one person that did not psychologically handle the transition very well, and she had to be removed because there was some...
She's freaked out or something?
Yeah, she got a little violent.
Oh, with who? Not with you?
No. I mean, she didn't actually engage with anyone, but she was...
like throwing things and breaking stuff?
She was having a hard time, so...
Do you think sometimes that's
it can happen.
Do you think sometimes that's I'm going to freak out and just get myself kicked out of here? Or
that happens.
That happens too, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if that was her case, but a lot of times when you get further into the Navy, they call it going sad.
Yeah.
It's where you say that you're going to hurt yourself.
But you're not really going to do it. You just want to go. It's the same thing like when people go to jury duty and they say horrible things like, I'm a racist.
Exactly.
And you're not a racist. You just want to be on jury duty. Okay, so boot camp, though, how does it, do you tough it out? How long is it?
2 months.
2 months.
Well, technically, I think for me it was 9 weeks because you have to wait till enough people get there so that we can have a full division. So you have what are called P days. It's basically like, just sit here with your training wheels on until we have enough people and we can get you into the training pipeline.
Okay. I picture Full Metal Jacket though every single time.
A little bit.
Is it similar to that, to where you have? How was your drill sergeant?
Oh, we got so lucky, let me tell you. We got a chief, and it was a chief and then a first class petty officer, I think, or maybe a second class. There's usually 2 or 3 people in charge. One of them, she was kind of the hard ass. She actually had a family emergency, so she actually left and went on leave. So we didn't really deal with her very much. And
you got the substitute teacher, who's pretty nice.
Well, the new chief that we got, we were his first division that he ever had at boot camp, and he had girls at home. he had daughters.
Okay.
So, I mean, he certainly taught us all of the right things, but
he's
he
being
was
a
a
little
little bit of a
protective.
softie.
Yeah, I see.
Like I was in boot camp during winter.
Okay.
So, there was like leftover Halloween candy, I think, still
And
in
winter in
stores and
Chicago's
stuff.
no joke.
No, it is not
Right.
a joke.
So
But he gave us like a piece of candy every once in a while, which you're not supposed to do. He'd have apples in his office, and if people were, just having a hard day, he'd be like, "Here, have an apple." I don't know why that would help, but it did.
Well, it's just that comforting motion, right? It's that show of support. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the fact that like there's someone there who's giving you a kind gesture.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially in a time like that when you're being emotionally, mentally challenged, that means that means the world to you.
Oh yeah, they're definitely they want to make you as malleable as possible.
course.
So they very gently break you.
Yeah.
But not in a harsh way. Not quite like TV and movies.
You ever have a moment during boot camp and you're like, no, I'm good, I'm done?
No, not really.
No.
I think that I had the advantage since I had already been speaking with my recruiter so much. He gave me all of the information I would need to memorize, like about rank insignias, chain of command, order of succession, all of that sort of
Right.
stuff. So I went in there knowing all of the things that you have to spend 2, 3, 4 weeks learning. So it was a
so
little
much
easier.
sense. Knowing you how much I know you now just from the Schmoedown and how much you study and how much you like what you've taught yourself in 3 months in this silly little game as opposed to this real life that you were going through. I can only imagine the preparation, and then I can see it. I can envision you hitting the books, knowing it, memorizing it, and just being then. The chief comes up to you, asks you a question, you know it, he moves on.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got really lucky because I think it would have probably been a little more taxing if I had to worry about not just learn how to fold your clothes exactly the way we teach you, or else we're going to throw them all on the floor and make you fold them again.
And they did that a lot to people in
Oh
other
yeah,
places,
I mean, they want to brainwash you, so to
Yeah.
speak, but in the good way. Like they want to show you that there is conformity and uniformity in a way that matters, and they still allow you to be an individual. But if you don't fold your socks right, then they're going to make you fold them all again.
And what time period is this?
This is 2005.
2005. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're in Iraq.
I mean, we're post 9/11.
Yeah. Okay, so we're in Iraq, and so are you thinking at that? Because that's another reason why I asked that question when you join up. It's like that's a scary time in history, especially when
Well, especially with my background.
That's what I'm saying.
There's some, a little bit of awkwardness, so to speak.
Right, and it's like, well, we're especially when. So, did you travel to Iraq?
No. I've
don't?
actually never
Okay.
been to Iraq.
Okay.
Through both the military and through my personal time, I've spent a lot of time in the UAE and in Bahrain specifically. So.
All right. Well, not to jump over then, do because you're in boot camp, you finish, graduate with flying colors, I'm sure.
I was the honor recruit, as a matter of fact.
Not surprised whatsoever. And you graduate, and then what do they say? They say, "Okay, Ms. Knopic, here's where you go next."
Yeah. Then you go to school. You have
Okay.
to. There's 4 different kinds of nuclear field people in the military.
Right.
There's mechanics. There's it's called an ELT, an engineering laboratory technician. They do all the chemistry. They're like the pool guy for the nuclear plant.
Okay.
And it's a very hard job. There's electricians, and then there's electronics technicians, which are the people that actually do operate the reactor.
Now,
that
is it
split
like
atoms.
Gattaca where they put you certain places, or
Yeah.
you? Oh, it is. Okay. It's not, you don't choose.
Well, they give you a thing where you say, okay, list what your preference would be. ET, ELT, MM, EM.
I see.
Pick your list, but then they balance that off of your test scores and see, for example, I could say I want to be a mechanical, I want. But if I didn't really do well with mechanical reasoning and I really excelled at like electronics and electrical theory and stuff like that, they would say, I know that's what you want, but we're not going to do that.
Right.
So I was lucky that I got my first choice because all my research had shown me that whenever you do get out of the military, because you have licensure from the DOE, you can hop right into a nuclear power job at a power plant, making a really healthy living for yourself. And you can only do that if you're an electronics technician. So,
So that's what you wanted to do.
that is what I wanted, and that's what I did.
And you get out there, and then around 2006, 2005, 2006.
2005, yeah.
So you're then how long are you in school learning all this stuff?
You spend 18 months accomplishing pretty much a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
That's kind of the general way to refer to it. It's about 18 months. It can be more, it can be less. You first focus on like electrical theory and stuff like that. Then you go into physics, reactor fundamentals, thermodynamics, materials, all of that sort of really specific engineering stuff.
Yeah.
And learning like the neutron life cycle and everything about fission. And then you go to a prototype. So it's an actual nuclear reactor. And there's one in Charleston, South Carolina, and one in New York.
And it's the first time you're seeing any of this stuff?
Yeah.
And does it just blow your mind?
It actually kind of blows my mind at how simple it is.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, TV and movies do get it mostly right when they show you it's just like a big board full of dials and buttons.
I
and
picture
switches.
Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely all Homer Simpson.
the donuts and the
colossal donut.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so the first time you see the plant, you're going. Are you ever nervous at the plant? Because it's like
I would say dipping my toe in a little bit. I was always more. I'm sometimes timid, which I know sounds kind of unlike the me that you know, but that's because I know you so well.
Sometimes, but I see timid sometimes from you. I mean, even when it comes back, and we'll talk about Schmoedown once we get to the end of this interview. But like even in the beginning of it, like when I know you so now, like you're very outspoken. You'll always let people know what's on your mind, and you have
mostly
you have strong opinions and especially when you're not confronted. That's not the right word, but when you're in a conversation, you don't tell people what they want to hear. You'll say from the conversations I've had with you, this is what I think. Let's have a rational conversation about it and let's talk about it. I don't necessarily agree with that point, but I see where you're coming from that point. That's the conversations I've always had with you. However, when I first met you, to me, it was it's Mara, that's Dan's girlfriend, and hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Good to see you. I'd like to play in Schmoedown one day. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. And then that was it. And then a year and a half later, we talked about it, but it wasn't. So I do see the kind of timid thing back then. Maybe not as much now because, like you said, we know each other.
Once I get comfortable in a place, I think that I guess I'm sort of like a small animal. If you put me in a new cage,
like a Wolverine?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
But I have to kind of get my surroundings and the people. I like to people watch and get a sense of what someone is like before I really engage with them.
Okay.
Yeah, just so I know how to talk to them.
Smart.
Because I think that you can say something 5 different ways and say the same thing, but someone needs to hear it a certain way in order for it to be either received positively or understand that it's not criticism or just simply that you're being friendly.
Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about before in the conversation with Lost. It's like you don't know how certain people are going to react to anything.
Yeah.
And so you like to just assess the situation in general. So you're working at the plant. You're getting yourself, you're learning more and more and more. You're finding that you start to have a love for this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I love operating the plant. It's been a long time since I've split an atom, but
how do you split an atom? Like how do they tell you how to do that? Like what's the process?
Well, I mean, first they literally teach you, with like a slide projector, and they show you, hey, this is what happens when you bombard, an element with this, and this is how a neutron does that, and this is all of these different terms. It's kind of like learning a new language. It's not especially difficult to learn. I think anybody could do it, especially if they put their mind to it. You don't have to be super smart to learn how to make fission. You don't.
Right.
I just got lucky that I was one of the people that decided I want to be a nuclear engineer. I want to be a smart person.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit though too, because there comes a lot of mental toughness getting through from the boot camp to also putting in the work, putting in like.
It's a pretty rigorous education. Because
that's why I don't think anybody can do it.
They give you have effectively like a semi-final or like a midterm exam about once a week.
Yeah, but I think you have. So, and would you consider yourself a bookworm? You seem, but you smile and you revel in that. Like you love to be like you love more information, more knowledge. So that's why I don't think anybody can do it. I think that there's what you have done. Admirably is the fact that you lock in. And again, I'm also gonna equate everything to Schmoedown because that's where I really got to know you a lot. It's like you look at the preparation that you've done there, and then when you tell me all this stuff now about what you did in your career, I'm not surprised because I can see it. It's fascinating, but I'm not surprised because that's kind of how you're built. And I just wonder, like, again, learning to, you said I guess growing up, you started to kind of have to rely on yourself a lot too, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I was always encouraged. I had books more than I had toys. And the toys I had were usually fairly educational, like my Tonka toys, because, they teach you about how you can build something. How does a machine work? How does a crane work? What makes wheels spin inside of, a little piece of metal? Yeah. So... yeah, they were really, and I spent so much time at the museums and aquarium and the zoos in Chicago. So my favorite place in Chicago is the Field Museum, the Museum of Natural History. So
do you go back when you visit?
I don't visit much, but when I do, I try to go there. Yeah.
You gonna go back for Celebration in Chicago? Maybe, maybe not?
Maybe not.
Okay.
It just depends.
It depends. Did you try to stay away from Chicago?
I just, like I said, I don't have a very close relationship per se with my family.
Family-wise. Okay, so that's where you try to. Okay, so it's not a matter of Chicago in general.
Oh no,
it's
I love Chicago.
Right. It's just you try to. You moved here for a reason. We'll say that. Okay, that's fair. Now, when you are, how long are you in school for then again? When you're splitting atoms and you're doing
18 months.
You're there 18 months, right? So then you get out.
Yep, and then you get to go to your vessel, your ship. So they let you make another little wish list, right?
Okay, so now this is like 2008? 2007?
2007, yeah.
Okay, so 2007, 2000, around that time. So you go on, now they, and you're excited to find out what ship you're going to, I assume, right?
I admit that I knew exactly what ship I was going to go to,
How
that
did
there
you
was
know?
no question.
How'd you know?
So the oldest aircraft carrier at the time was the USS Enterprise, and it was the Frankenstein's monster of nuclear power, because it had 8 nuclear reactors that were the size of the ones on submarines. They were basically the exact same thing. They just took 8 of them, hooked them all together, and put them on an aircraft carrier. Because that was the very first one. They didn't really know how to do it any other way. So, many years later, when they built the second nuclear aircraft carrier, they just put 2 enormous reactors in there. So the Enterprise is completely unique in how it operated. It's the only parallel nuclear field operations that ever existed. So it's kind of like a seesaw. 2 reactors share the load for 1 power plant. So it makes operating really dynamic. You have to be very careful, a lot of attention to detail. But nuclear people generally don't want to go there because you have to there's so much more work. There's 4 times the amount of monthly maintenance items you have to do.
But not you. You wanted to go.
I did, because I love Star Trek.
Yeah,
and
right. That's what I'm saying. When you said it, I said that's appropriate that you would get that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So most people, they don't want to go to the Enterprise. They pick any other ship, and then a lot of them get sent there because there's just not enough spaces on all the other ships, and they need people.
I feel like this is one of the first conversations that you and Dan must have had when you first met.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Sure it was.
I think it took about 7 minutes for me to say, by the way, I know how much you also love Star Trek. I was on the real USS Enterprise. I was Scotty.
Oh, that's so awesome. So you get to get the Enterprise, and how long are you on the Enterprise for?
4.5 years.
Holy moly! Where does it go?
It was based in Virginia.
In Virginia, okay.
Yeah. It used to be in San Francisco when they still had the Navy base there a long time ago.
But you were first on board in Virginia.
Yes.
Okay, so and where do you go throughout that time?
Well, we went on. We did 2 deployments that supported Operation Iraqi Freedom and 1 that supported Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time in the Middle East, a lot of time in the Arabian Gulf.
Well, tell me about those 4 years. Like, what? I mean, do you get nervous during the time? I mean, that's a pretty stupid question. As far as are there times because of that time? Again, this is around 2008, 2009, in the Middle East. Just still to this day, not great. So there's always a chance that something happens.
True. I will say that as a nuclear field person, you feel, and honestly, being on the aircraft carrier itself, it feels very safe in general, because you're on a floating island with 4,999 of your closest friends, and we send planes over. They do their business that they do, and then they come back. I definitely had an easier tenure of service than somebody like, for example, like Jason Inman. He slept in sand.
Right. He was on the ground. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's important work, all of it. Even the person that was just mopping a floor, but I was lucky to know that I had a really good measure of security. I was very fortunate for that.
So then what's the normal day on the ship?
So there's 2 kinds of days. There's a day where you work in the plant, and there's a day where you work in reactor training, because I had some minor health issues. So for a while, I couldn't get any extra radiation exposure. So
Can you talk about what those are? You'd rather not.
It's unimportant.
Okay.
It's not anything serious.
Move
so
on.
I'm fine.
Okay.
But they weren't sure what was going on.
Right.
So just to be safe, they said, let's just not irradiate you for a little bit.
Okay.
So normally a person would go to their plant and they would work there, and then you day to day you just wake up, eat breakfast, go to your plant to see what needs to be done, what work is there, shoot the shit with people for like 4 or 6 hours, and then eventually just like slip away and go to your rack and go read, go watch movies, go to the gym.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you're such a movie buff. It's like, and I was like, well, how the hell, in all these stories that she's telling me here, when do you have a chance to watch movies? And I guess that's the answer.
Every Saturday night, there's EXO movie night. So the executive officer puts on a movie. We used to get some movies, early because we were deployed. So the studios were really great about giving us all the good new movies. And we have TV network, and they play a bunch of movies all the time.
Okay.
Like they did a Godfather marathon once.
Oh, cool.
And then they did the Sopranos marathon. They do all sorts of
So
stuff.
you were caught up in a lot of pop culture stuff and even movies. And
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't just.
Plus, you can order stuff on Amazon.
Oh, you can. Wow. Okay. See, this is stuff that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I guess I'll go back to the same question because it all has a through line. The reason I ask, same thing I asked you in high school. Relationships while you're in the Navy, or you're.
Oh no, I mean
No.
you definitely
You
have you have to make those people your family.
Right. Okay.
I mean, and not necessarily that I didn't choose it, but that I was so lucky that I got along so well with just about everybody that I knew.
Okay.
And I didn't have to interact much with the people that I didn't care for personally, and it didn't have to make its way into the workplace either.
Because you weren't a loner. You had friends.
Oh,
and, Okay, that's kind of what I meant though too, because that's hard for some people too. But
Yeah.
because I know that you're really in tune with your work and everything too, but the relationships were there, and you were able to for 4 years establish some pretty strong relationships that you still carry on now, or do you?
I actually don't keep in
don't?
contact really with anybody, but I know that, for example, I could probably reach out to some people,
Yeah.
and they'd probably be reasonably happy to hear from me.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, just because you just lost touch, different, or you want to say this is a different part of my life.
sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like anything. You know, you could have the best friend you've ever had since high school, but do you talk to them once a week now,
Right.
once a month, a couple times a year? So it kind of becomes like that. And then the longer you're out, the less that you think about, oh yeah, I really want to call my friend John and
True.
say, hey, what's going on, man? You're still in the Navy and I'm not. How's it going?
Well, that's a good point, because I think it's funny because perfect example is my friend Samantha, her Polonia was her name, but she's now married. But she and I talk now, and she called into Collider Live, right?
Oh, that's so nice.
I went to grammar school with her, right? 1st to 8th grade. And had it not been for Facebook or MySpace or whatever, too, I probably would have never seen her again in my life or talked to her again in my life. So you're right, though. Without the use of like social media and stuff, unless you're actively searching, because we did like we went to St. Roberts was the name of the place. So we did a whole search for all the St. Roberts peeps, and now we all have reconnected, and they want to do a reunion next year and all this stuff.
That's
But
so cool.
yeah, but it's like without social media at that point, these people, the way it used to be is, I wonder what the hell happened to that person.
Yeah.
And that's really how it goes down. So you finish up, you decide what makes you decide this is it. I don't want to do it anymore.
So you have the opportunity to re-enlist at about your 2-year-ish point, and that was during my first deployment.
Okay.
And deployments are a great time to re-enlist because you get your re-enlistment bonus tax-free. So you get every penny of that thing. It's amazing. And as an ET, I would have been offered a very high enlistment bonus, about $90,000.
Wow.
And I was strongly considering it because, I mean, that sets you up for the rest of your life
Yeah.
if you're smart, because you get it all at once, lump sum. You can invest it, you can save it, IRAs, 401k, whatever you want to put it in. But my boss at the time, there was a small accident in the plant, and there was a person that was working on something that they shouldn't have been at the time, and there was a hole that got poked in a pressurized tank, so to speak. So he got blasted in the face with steam because it was high pressure.
Yeah.
When it gets exposed to atmosphere, it flashes to steam. And it looked like it could have been a very, very bad accident at the beginning, because you don't know. You just see steam everywhere.
Right. You were there?
I was asleep.
Oh, okay.
But it was an emergency, so
Right,
they
right.
do this announcement over the 1MC circuit, which is the whole ship, and it says, "Hey, get out of bed and muster. We need to figure out who's dead." Pretty much is what they do that for. And luckily, nobody was seriously injured. But my chief, he was on watch. He went and he helped get the guy and carry him out to go to medical.
I see.
So I mean, the guy had burns. My chief had some small burns. They were both had difficulty with the steam exposure to their throats. So I mean, there was some injury there, but the guy definitely could have probably died if no one had helped him, and if it could have been worse. And that's a pretty big feat of heroism.
Right.
And they said, okay, what kind of award can we give this chief for doing this?
This isn't the same chief that you were with in boot camp. This is a different chief.
Oh, no, this is a different chief. Yeah, there were a lot of chiefs.
Yeah.
But it ended up being where the only thing they could give him was effectively like a written letter, so to speak, because there are certain awards where when you win so many of them, they're like, oh, we're not really going to give you another one, even though you definitely have earned it.
Right. That pissed you off?
There's a little bit of politics that go for it as well. There's only so many of certain awards they can give to people in a year or something like that.
Right.
So the long and short of it was I just thought, wow, this guy pretty much saved another guy's life, and there's really no way that they can adequately thank him.
Yeah.
They can't give him more money. They can't give him more time off because we're on deployment.
You feeling a little used?
I just felt like the system was not broken, but there was a greasy wheel in the Navy, and I wasn't going to sit around and hear it squeak.
So you
I
walk
decided
away.
not to re-enlist.
All right, so that $90K is on the table. You say no thanks.
no.
I'm good.
I
and
finished
you leave.
out the rest of my time.
So you finish out, and again, so time period wise, we're like 2009 now, 2010.
When I got out, 2011.
2011.
Yeah, late 2011.
Okay, so you get out of 2011, and where do you go?
I interviewed at a couple of places, but I got hired at a nuclear power plant in Mississippi.
Okay.
And I worked there as my official title was that I was a senior operations instructor. So what I would do is I would go through the training courses for a nuclear operator because you have to learn that plant is totally different than any other Navy plant, like functionally, operationally, all different.
And
so,
why'd you go to Minnesota? Just because that was the offer on the table, or you love cold weather?
oh, Mississippi, not Minnesota.
Oh, there's a Minnesota. Okay, Mississippi. Okay,
Yeah.
so never mind that.
But no, yeah, I went
takes
there
away.
because it was 2011. Jobs were scarce everywhere, and I was very happy to be offered a high-paying job, so I said yes.
All right, so you take the job in Mississippi.
Yep.
All right, so you're in Mississippi, and then you're there for how long?
I worked there nearly 5 years.
Wow, man, this is all stuff I didn't know. So from 2011 until 2016, you're in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And you have like a full life there for 5 years, and you're set up like this is where you think you're going to live for the, I guess for
the foreseeable future. I mean, I would say that in general, I had some negative experiences in Mississippi.
Like what?
Well, one of my neighbors, for instance, and it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of the way that he went about it. One of the first times he ever talked to me, I was outside like raking leaves or something, and he came over and just introduced himself and said, "Oh yeah, I have a wife, I have this many kids, so on and so forth. What church do you go to?"
Oh.
And I very politely, I was like, I've very new to town, so I haven't really had time to investigate any sort of like religious options. And he kind of poked at me a little bit until I was like, "I'm Jewish."
Yeah.
And, there's not really any synagogues in Mississippi anyway, although there is one really old one, rumor has it.
Right.
So, a little bit of stuff like that. Also, since I was out of the military, you can tell that I like to express myself through my hair. I just didn't fit in very well, per se. And the plant itself, it was always like an old man club in the sense that, when they first opened the plant and they were getting people either out of the military, because a lot of them are former Navy people, or getting them straight out of high school, college, a lot of the people there were at around 40 to 55.
Okay.
So I was the youngest person in my whole department by a decade.
Wow.
And then the next nearest person to him was a decade older than him.
That's still 5 years you did that.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Like, so when you first get there and the guy's asking about the church and you know right away, you're like, I don't know if this is for me, but you stick around for 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I loved what the actual job was.
Yeah.
And I did make a couple small moves in the company.
Okay,
and
so that's what the work kept you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I never thought I would love teaching, ever. If you'd said, "Mara, do you want to be a teacher?" I'd say, that sounds very thankless and not interested. But when I was on the ship and I couldn't get any extra radiation, they put me in the training division. So I was teaching new recruits, new people to the ship, how to run the plant. And that's where I kind of got a really strong taste for it. And I really ended up liking it because it's such a compliment to be able to see someone do better than you have done because you've helped them to realize they can.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I would actually think you would be an amazing teacher because anytime you talk, anytime I've ever heard you talk about science, your face lights up and you want to talk to everybody that's in the room about it. So you would when you say that, I'm saying, well, that makes sense. 5 years you're there, 2016. And then there's got to be, again, that ultimate choice of you're like, no, I'm done.
Coincidentally, I resigned from my job the day that I met Dan Murrell. But before I met him. It was just a coincidence.
Before you met him. Okay.
Yeah, I resigned that morning and then I met him that evening.
Oh, wow. And then so fate happened. So how do you guys meet?
Well, the general story is that a mutual friend introduced us and just kind of said, "Oh, I think you might get along." And, I had seen
in
him
Mississippi?
In New Orleans. We were
In New
both at
Orleans.
Wizard World.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in New Orleans. You were just going there to hang out with friends and enjoy Wizard World.
Yeah, a friend of mine was going to Wizard World with me, and then I was staying in the same hotel with another friend who had a swim meet, like a town or so over. So just decided we were going to stay there together in New Orleans.
So you go to New Orleans, you go to Wizard World, and because you are, as we know, you're a geek by proud.
Yes.
And you go and you're there because we know you love Star Trek.
Yes.
Why are you there for that particular Wizard World? Just to go and
Actually, because they were doing the promotion for Screen Junkies Plus at the time, and I had been a huge fan of movie fights and the Screen Junkies show, pretty much all of that stuff.
Did you start watching that back when you were in Mississippi or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I never was a big YouTube person. I had probably seen 5 YouTube videos before I randomly was on YouTube for I don't even know why, or maybe it was like a recommended video from something I had watched before, but I saw movie fights and honest trailers, and I thought, oh my god, this is so cool.
Because you're in debates, it's perfect for you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I, naturally I digested all of that, and then actually through them is how I found you and Mark when you guys do your Schmoes reviews.
Oh, because I didn't realize. See, I thought you met us through Dan. I didn't realize you had seen it before.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Actually, there was one time you called him, and it was when he and I were still in the bubble where we hadn't said to everyone, "Hey, by the way, we're dating."
Sure.
And you were talking with him on the phone in the car. He was in his car, and I was just sitting there laughing like he doesn't even know I'm here.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, well, so you guys, all right. So then you go to Wizard World.
Yep.
And then you're a fan of Screen Junkies. You want to go there for the launch and everything too, and then you go and you meet Dan. So how's that situated? So where do you guys meet? You meet at a movie fights panel?
We met on Bourbon Street.
On Bourbon Street?
Yeah, and we just
bumped into each other? Or because of the mutual friend? Because of the mutual friend.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. The mutual friend introduces you guys, and right away you guys because you guys are like frickin' frack now. So it's adorable. So where the two of you guys you can't. And I say this lovingly. It's you unless you're Dan's working, it's like you looked or you're working. It's like you look to the left. There's Mara. Dan's right there. Or you look at Dan. Mara. You guys are attached to the hip, and it's amazing. Not in a way that it's like when I go to the movie theater, I know that if I need to talk to you, I just got to find Dan. If I need to talk, it's and vice versa. And
it's easier to find him because he's taller.
Right. And that's 2 years. And you know that you found the right person there. Which again, 2 years later, and it's still. I mean, it's still that way.
Almost 3 years.
Is it almost 3 years now?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this is early 2016.
Yeah, we met January 8th, 2016.
Okay. Yeah. So about 3 years. Yeah. And I talk about it lovingly with Brett Sheridan, who's on Collider Live. Mm-hmm. He and his wife together have been 16 years.
Oh, that's lovely.
And they make each other. He makes her laugh the same way I known them the full 16 years, and he makes her laugh today the same way he did 16 years ago. And I feel similarly when I look at you guys. It's like the same. The first time I ever met you, it was the same way that it is today. I mean, you probably speak about that better than I can. But it's like, what is it about Dan? If you don't mind me asking, that you just kind of gravitated towards?
Well, even though a lot of what gets done on YouTube, whether it's like Screen Junkies or Schmoes or any other channel, there's always a certain element of it's a persona, but it's always how much of a persona is it really? And, listening to him on movie fights, for example, I would always think, if there was a question, I would come up in my head, I'm like, oh, I would say this. And it's exactly what he would say. And it's like, oh, I would definitely, you need that counterpoint. I hope he says that. And then he'd say it. And
so you're rooting for him before you even had to root for him.
Well, I just thought, gosh, how do you have the exact same thought process as another person you've never met? So that was obviously one really fascinating thing. I was really happy when we met to find out, because you always wonder how much of that is really you. Mm-hmm. And that is it. Dan is just who he is. And same thing when he comes over and he competes here. He doesn't have per se a character. He's just a little heightened version of Dan Murrell.
Right. And that's what I said. I think I said it to you right before we went on the air. He's one of the most genuine people that I know. Yeah. And he's like, and I told you, I said the same thing. And I hope he knows it. I mean, he's one of my favorite people that I've met in this space because of how genuine he is. And I think that's why the fans have reacted to him the way, because the fans can smell that. The fans know A, who's one of theirs, and B, who's real. Because the thing is, if you do this long enough and you're not genuine, you will be exposed. Yeah, it's just how it is. It's like if you pretend you're one particular way, the crack will happen. The people you work with will see it. Fans will see it. Whoever it is, that will not happen with Dan Murrell. Because that's who Dan Murrell is.
Yeah.
And that's why. So I understand it. What you're saying. But So, but there's a difference here between meeting someone at a WizardCon.
Wizard World.
Wizard World. You're meeting someone at Wizard World, and you are a fan of this person. Then you hit it off on that particular day or whatever it might be.
Oh yeah, we spent hours just talking. You know,
Right.
I don't remember. We might have closed down one of the bars, but and then we sat on this huge granite bench that was freezing cold, just talking like, you know, what was our favorite Star Trek: The Next Generation episode? What do you think about The Force Awakens? Like just all of.
And did he
all
pinch
the
you and say
things.
you're not real? I mean, at this point, I mean that's crazy.
Well, you know, he's been trying to work on his schedule so that way he can come here. I want you to ask him that exact question.
I would
when
love
he gets
to.
in here.
Yeah, I would love to. So you then, because is there a tease moment though, as far as like, so Dan then, this is like the perfect guy, it sounds like to you, right? And then he then goes back to
Well, hold
LA.
on. I got to tell you about what happened the next day
Please,
first.
please.
So, you know, one of the people that that helped kind of set us up, intending for it to be like, oh, it's just like a one-night stand.
Like a
which,
hookup,
Which
yeah.
neither one of us were interested in
Right.
that, especially because number one, it's just not, no judgment to people that do. It's totally fine, but it's just
Right.
not what we do. And we spent so much time talking, and we enjoyed each other so much as human beings. And I suggested to him, I said, you know what? We should play a prank, and we should try to get this person back for underestimating that we could have actually had a human connection and thinking that it just had to be this one-time thing.
Just assuming it was going to be a hookup and then see you later, right?
Yeah. So we pulled an elaborate prank where he acted as if I was a Psycho fan, like single white female, like stalker. I am insane. I wouldn't leave him alone. I kept asking for his phone number. I kept giving.
And you came up with the plan?
Oh yeah.
Of course you did.
Well, I mean,
love it.
no, he helped.
No, I know, but I
enlarged
can
it.
see you going, what if? And then the two of you collaborate. I love it. So, okay, so you collaborate on this plan.
And so all the next day, it was just crazy stuff. You know, I'd like look over and I'd like see them and I'd just stare at them really, really creepily.
And was it working?
Well, it wasn't working at first.
Oh, okay.
So Dan texted me. He said, "You gotta like turn it up. Like you gotta do something." So I sent him these really creepy messages, like, "Oh my God, it was so magical. I can't believe it. Like our kids are gonna think that this night was a miracle. Like just crazy
Great,
stuff."
right.
And finally, they were doing a meet and greet before they had a panel with the Russo brothers to do a watch along with the Winter Soldier.
Sure.
And I went and I gave him this like awkward, uncomfortable, forced
Dan?
hug.
Yeah.
And then finally it caught on, and the friend was like, "Do I need to call security? Oh my God, I can't believe I cannot believe that this is my fault. I am so sorry." And so
And then you let him in on the
we
prank?
waited about an hour, but yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so
So I knew I could have fun with him.
right, and that's where I was going to say. You knew that after meeting him for like the day, and you guys could do that. Besides having a lot of the similar likes, it's like now you can. You know what? Because you have a very particular sense of humor.
I do.
You do, and like, and that's the thing. I know that I have a particular sense of humor as well, and my wife had to. We vibed, our humor vibe right away, and the same thing. We make each other laugh to this day. But it's like not everybody gets my type of humor, not everybody likes my type of humor, but my wife does.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to find, and you found that quick.
Yeah.
So he goes back to L.A.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in Mississippi, even though you've given your day, you're done. But what was the plan before you meet Dan? You had a plan of what you were going to do. Where were you going to go? Like, what were you going to do? Were you going to just kind of find another job in Mississippi?
Well, I think I was gonna shop around,
Okay.
maybe try to go back to school, just see what I could find that would make me feel a little bit more fulfilled.
Sure.
With my career. But since I ended up, I just thought it would be cool to just like meet and talk with Dan. Like, that'd be so great. Like, I want to see if this is, the guy that I think he is. Like, I want to know if his brain works on the same frequency as my brain.
So you knew that quick. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then, so we just kept talking,
Yeah.
It very quickly transitioned from like, hey, someone awkwardly introduced us to, hey, we have a genuine rapport as friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally it's like, I don't really have anything that's holding me down. I'm just going to come visit.
So you came to visit LA.
Yeah. And I'd been to LA so many times.
Okay.
It wasn't like an adventure for me. It was just hopping on a plane.
And how was that because of your job? You were in LA?
Part of it. I went here for my military service once, but then, if I was ever on the West Coast for something else, I'd always like pop through LA for a little while.
Okay.
So, I knew how to get around. I knew where things were. And so, we spent a long weekend just again seeing like, how are we getting along? Is this like a thing? Are we gonna say this is a thing?
Yeah, and conversations are happening while you're in LA for visits.
Yeah,
right.
I think we both knew right away that it was going to be something, but we're both rational adults.
Sure.
You don't want to just jump to the conclusion of something.
Well, especially because there's always that risk of like that whirlwind thing that you're in the beginning, and then somebody shows you something. Like, oh, maybe that wasn't that was just the honeymoon period.
Oh yeah, no, but the best behavior period.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe you slurp your spaghetti, but on the first 5 dates, you're definitely not going to do that.
Right. And so you got to go through that, and it's even harder when you don't live in the same state.
Yeah.
So then you find the visits becoming more frequent. Is that kind of what happened?
I came back I think a few weeks later, and then a few weeks after that, and I stayed for a while that time, and then I went home and I just got my stuff and I came to LA.
And you guys had the conversation, or just you guys are just like, I'm coming out.
Yeah.
It's perfect, and that was it. How far into the relationship is that?
Let's see, like 4 months about.
It's impressive.
I think we wanted to make sure we gave it the requisite amount of time before it just seemed like foolhardy to uproot everything. But at the same time, it was just so serendipitous that I didn't have a job tying me down. I think if I were still working at the plant, that would have been a much more difficult decision to make.
Right.
But since I had left of my own volition, having nothing to do with him, I felt totally fine.
And ironically, it happened on the same day.
Exactly.
So it seemed
didn't plan that at all. I resigned that morning on a whim.
Which is crazy, and it seems like that whim turned out to be fate, if you will, because then here you go. You guys are together 3 years later, and you're living together.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you are. So when you get out to LA, though, is there a nervousness, or it's just like the focus, like you said, the focus at this point was focusing in on Dan first, and then learn as you, because eventually that becomes, okay, well, this is who I'm with, and now I have to focus on me as well. Does that kind of where it goes?
A little bit. One of the reasons, I can kind of tie this all together, one of the real reasons why I wanted to actually compete in the Schmoedown and finally actually do it was because I wanted to try to find a way that I could form my own relationships with people that weren't referencing, oh, you're Dan's girlfriend.
Right.
Because everyone here was always incredibly nice, welcoming, and never had a bad experience. But I also never really felt like anyone was talking to me. It was always like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, nice weather we're having. Okay. And it wasn't rude or anything, but I had nothing. There was no common ground that people wanted to discuss with me, really.
Right.
And I still, a lot of times, feel really isolated out here because I only just now have like a group of people where I can come here every week and watch matches or compete in matches or
I feel that's
host
changed
something, and I feel a lot better than I did. There would be days where the only human being I would talk to would be Dan.
Right.
So
first of all, I'm glad that because the thing is that I'm guilty of what you just said there, not because of anything except just probably never even really knowing that you wanted to do it, except that, like you said, and we've joked about it before, and the Schmoedown rundown guys have talked about it as well too, to where you did say at one point, even your first match, I want to play, and you probably said it to me 2 or 3 times.
Well, I don't know if you recall. I think the first 2 times you actually asked me, but it was at the 2 Comic-Con parties that Screen Junkies hosted.
I remember the second one. It was because it was right before Dan and I were supposed to play one another.
Yeah.
I do remember that after you told me, and I was like, I do remember that because, and I think we all had a couple of drinks as well
too. We were having a great time.
Yeah, and so that was probably it. And then when I said, whenever it was, and I said to you, it was what kicked me in the ass was when I said, do you want to play? And you're like, you've asked me twice, and I've said yes both times. And I said okay. And the other thing, this is again why bringing up the beginning of this conversation, where you're the type of person that would say, you're not rude, you're
the busiest. You're one of the busiest people I know. I couldn't possibly fault you for being a little scatterbrained from time to time. Because I see how involved you are with your family. I see how involved you are here. I was never upset that you misplaced it in your head at all.
And I mispronounced your name.
That's okay.
And it was also because my accent is too. But when I said your last name I messed up completely. And you said it's Knopic. And I said, but I used to say Mara because that's just kind of the New York in me.
Yeah.
But you said. And you were so nice about it. You pulled me to the side because you didn't want to embarrass me. It was so nice at the movie theater. And you said, just to let you know, it's Knopic and it's Mara. And I was like, that's the nicest person who's ever told me that I fucked up their name ever. And I was like, and I appreciate that very much. And any time that it ever happens again, you can always call me out of my shit.
Oh,
so
no, that's okay.
It was amazing.
I think it's a fun running gag that every time someone new's at the table and they're announcing me and they have no idea how to say it.
Still, which is, well, but getting into that. So then, because you become, as you saw, because you've been around the Schmoedown for a while.
Since I wasn't at Dan's match with Campia, but I was at every other match after that.
Right, and that was kind of the Collider era was really where the Schmoedown started to grow.
Yeah.
Like huge, like to where I think Dan's second match was Mance, and that was the one. And Dan and Riley and Roca were really like the first three big superstars of the league. It was Ed Clark Wolf as well. The four of them were like the big four superstars. And that's what really was growing around that time. And so I knew that you knew the game really well. So you have become a big star because of, I think that not just because of your knowledge. I mean, that's the given. I didn't know you had the wit that you did because what we did that scene with you and Kalinowski, and it was a matter, and you just were firing stuff off, and you played into it, and you knew it, and it's like that stuff's. Did you ever act before? Had you?
I mean, I did like the theater and stuff like that, but never with the intent of saying like I'm going to be an actor.
Right, but you can just goof around with it, and you had fun with it too, because the stuff with Mike, you and Mike are friends.
Yeah.
And so like getting into that kind of thing was, and that's the thing that people don't realize too, is that Mike plays the heel. And then
he's so nice.
He's so nice. We're breaking kayfabe here, guys, too, because they do have a big match coming up at Spectacular, where you guys are going to be playing one another. And
oh, you mean when I beat him?
there you go. That's not kayfabe on her end. But what it is the fact that like what we do and what people know, and I think a lot of fans get this, is that there's the heel, there's the good guy, the face. And you are clearly the face. He's clearly the heel, and things are said. But you guys are friends, and you're ready to play a great match. Your first match was incredible. Are you excited for the second match?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one thing I can't say it enough. I know there was always a lot of should Rachel and I have played each other because we were both just feeling terrible, and I was still in so much pain when I played Mike. Before the match started, he was like, "We're not doing this. You are not okay, we're not doing this." And I insisted on doing it because I said, I already went without taking payments today. We're doing it today.
I know, I did. I did.
And he checked on me after every round. He's like, if you need to stop, we can stop. He was incredibly kind about it. So at least this time, I'll be at full strength. Yeah. And I can ask him if he's okay.
Oh, yeah. So because the thing was, people were asking me, because like I said, when I checked in, I was checking in on you and Rachel up top, because Rachel at first, because that match still, it was like, it was just two injured fighters fighting to the, I mean, it was crazy, that match. It was still one of the best matches ever, but one of the things, taint is not a good word for it, but like one of the things that some people had a hard time watching the match.
I can't watch it.
Because you're both so worn out, and I remember asking Rachel, both of you guys said the same thing. If she wants to play, I'm going to play.
Yeah.
And then you both showed up, and you were like, I'm like, I think maybe we can push it. Maybe push it. And like you said, I'm here. I'm ready to play this. Let's do it.
Yep.
Rachel, I'm here. Let's play it. And then it was just I want to see you guys play at 100%.
I know.
I want to see what happens when that happens, because
I can only imagine. You guys better have a large catalog of sudden death.
We're going to do 20 rounds.
Yeah.
We're going to do a 20-round match.
She's incredible.
Well, what is it about the Schmoedown that you really like playing, though, too? Besides the fact, even if it wasn't my game, it's like, because I see you really come alive when it comes to, people just don't know you well enough to where, remember Brad Gilmore, who hosts the Rundown, he had called me and he said, when you first started playing, because it's just kind of it's the persona, it's what you do, you have this dry wit about you. And he said, does Mara like playing? I go, Mara loves playing.
Yeah.
I said, Mara is one of the most dedicated people to the game that I've seen, but it's a part of the shtick. It's just like, I had nothing better to do on a Tuesday or Friday, so here I am. But it's like, you're all in. You're spending weekends studying. It's like, what is it about the Schmoedown that you like playing so much?
Well, I would be lying if I didn't admit that it's always nice to distinguish yourself when you find that there's something that you're good at, whether it's like musicality or people that do act, or just any kind of hobby, people that knit things, because I would love to learn how to knit things. I don't know how to do that, but
you can speak Japanese
a little bit.
Yeah.
Although actually, you've seen my crafting skills; they are on fire.
Yeah, you made that cross the Coronado, which for the live event.
Yeah.
Oh man. I just realized that we're running out of time here, which stinks because I could talk to you for another hour. What I want to do before we wrap up is that for the end of the show, I give my guests a couple questions to ask me because I've been sitting here grilling you for an hour, so I let you do the same thing. So you can ask me whatever you like, and we can talk for the next 10 minutes, and then we'll call part 2 next time we talk.
That sounds great.
Okay, what do you got?
All right. I want you to be completely honest with me because it won't bother me at all. I have no shame. The military just gets it right out of you. What was your first impression of me, and how has that changed in how you feel about me today?
Neither one is bad. Like very similar to what you said. I probably when I first met you, I didn't know the depth of you. I didn't know the wit. I didn't know how intelligent you were. I didn't know how the level of investment in anything you put your mind to was. I didn't know that about you. Like I said, for good or bad, I knew you as Dan's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And always had nice conversations with you, always very polite, but we didn't really have any in-depth conversations. We talked about movies sometimes or this or that, but I think I just know who you are now. I know the difference between what I knew you as is, hi, how are you? Polite because you're my friend's lady, as opposed to, now he's my friend and you're my friend.
Yeah.
And he's my coworker, you're my coworker. He's one of my Schmoedown stars, you're one of my Schmoedown stars. It's like, you've accomplished what you wanted to do. You've separated yourself and you've made your own person because you went from being, again, and what you did, and to your credit, you made it clear, because I said to you, do you want Dan to walk out with you? Do you want Dan in your interview? You said, not this time. I want to establish this on my own.
Yeah.
And you won the whole damn tournament, and then you took the title, and you did that and then some. And then it's just like, that's Mara Knopic. And that's who you become to them, and that's who you become to me.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice to know. So I wonder, and you can tell me if whether or not this has ever been thought of, or whether or not you want to talk about it. Do you think there might ever be another baby Harloff in your future?
No, there will not.
No,
there will not. My wife and I actually talked about this the other day because we're both there at a part of our lives. I think that if we were maybe 3 or 4 years younger, a third would have been cool. Mm-hmm. Two's good. Two's good. And especially you're also asking at a time where we're fighting for sleep.
Oh, I can
like
only imagine.
Really. I mean, I love both my daughters to the end of time, but like, I want my youngest to learn how to sleep. She's a horrendous sleeper, and I'm going to give her so much shit when she's older. I can give her shit because she is, my poor wife. But no, 2's enough, and I'm good with it because they're going to be. My oldest is a great big sister already.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, they have this game now. She pushes. Actually, my oldest will sit on this car that we bought for the youngest, and the youngest pushes the oldest on the car.
Oh my
It's really cute. It's adorable. So
Aw.
yeah. So
Well, I guess you
2's
do
enough.
kind of have a third baby. You have the Schmoedown.
And Ellis.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so.
He still owes me a bagel.
Does he?
He
A
does.
bagel. Is that what you call it? A bagel?
A bagel. Yep.
Your best bagels are on the Bagel Broker on Beverly.
Oh, man. That's happening.
Go there. Go up Beverly, right near the Grove. Near the
Okay,
Grove.
yeah.
It's like, so are you going to see the screening tonight?
No.
Oh, okay. But there's a Bagel Broker. I mean, not that you would go to the Bagel Broker tonight, but just to know where it is. It's on the corner of Fairfax and Beverly.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
delicious. The best.
Yeah, I live walking distance from the Grove.
Oh, there you go.
One day I was walking over to go to a screening, and I actually ran into Roca and his girlfriend on the street.
Oh, yeah, because they live right there.
Yeah, and I creepily just walked right next to them until he looked over and he noticed me.
I used to live. The funny is, before Roca and I have known each other since college.
Yeah.
But we became closer friends, obviously, as we were working here and other places too. But for the longest time, I lived right around the corner from Roca. Like literally, when we weren't hanging out, I used to walk my dog past his apartment every day, and we weren't hanging out. It was so funny. Let me do 2 more.
Yes. Okay,
Sure.
let's see. Well, speaking of college, actually,
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you major in?
Theater
Oh, that makes sense now.
and communications minor. The first goal was to do film, but Florida State was a hard film school to get into.
Yeah, Dan didn't get into their film school
No,
either.
it was hard to do. So I went to theater school, and which is funny. You may or may not know this, but I ran a boxing organization, underground boxing and it was 2 a.m.
Ooh, do you have the scars to prove it?
I ran it. I fought in it twice. But I ran it, and it was I would have the cops would come to the damn thing too, but it was it was a fraternity thing. But like it would have, but I would have 2 people box. I had rankings. I had champions. I had the same system that I do for Schmoedown. But the fighters couldn't drink, obviously. And then once the bars were over, people come in. Guys would have to pay $1, and women got in free. And it was packed every Thursday. And we that was kind of, I don't know, just was the thing I did for the majority of that's what I was kind of known for in college for the majority, because I just ran it. And I ran it pretty. I took it. It was a premise that was started before me, but it was not open to the public. It was just like people were just doing it for like an athletic little fun thing. And I said, and it was done at like 6 in the afternoon. And I said, why don't we open it up at night?
Yeah.
Make it 2 in the morning. Make it like put music behind it. Do like an event, take cameras and do a whole thing. And people were like, who's going to watch that? And I said, everyone. and it turned out to be a big hit. We did it. My brother actually ran it 2 years after I left too. So it carried on for a while.
All right. Favorite beer?
It's a wuss one. Amstel.
It's
Amstel
okay. I
Light.
like Amstel.
Yeah, Amstel Light. I was, and my ex-girlfriend got me onto that because I like the taste.
Favorite cocktail?
I have 2. It's either Kettle One and Sprite, or a Captain and Diet. I know it's just one I was drinking a lot during my stand-up comedy days. Yeah.
All right, last one. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I'd exercise more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't have. I mean, I want to do it a lot more than I do, and I have a treadmill in my office.
Oh yeah, you do.
Just too busy, and it's a stupid excuse. I just need to do it more.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, the amazing Mara Knopic, the movie trivia Schmoedown Inner Geekdom champion of the world.
And all the worlds.
In all the worlds. What an amazing interview this has been. I feel like it just flew by.
Yeah, it really did.
We could have done this for a lot more. Thank you for being so open and honest with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. And then we'll see you. Remember, guys, once again, that Mara Knopic, she competes against Mike Kalinowski on December 23rd at the Schmoedown Spectacular #3. That old heel himself, that salty dog, Mike Killer Kalinowski, tries to get that title away from Mara Knopic. Will he be able to do it, or will the amazing one stay undefeated? Tune in and watch it, and check out Mara. Where can they find you on the social media tweets?
You can find me at Ouch This Megahertz. That's at Ouch_MHZ. It's a pun for people that are fond of electricity. And I don't really do anything on Facebook, but there is a Mara Knopic fan page on Facebook.
Yeah.
So
what about the Instagrams? Do you do that yet?
I'm so old.
You don't do it. That's fair. All right, guys. Well, thank you again, Mara. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you subscribe to this. If you're watching on YouTube, go on over to the audio. You can listen to this. Finish this interview in your car if you want to. Go and check it out, or in the gym. Exercise.
Yes, the gym.
And do it, and make sure that you download it on Apple Podcasts, do it on Podcast One, or if you're Android users, comment, like, do all that stuff, and we will catch you next time. I am Kristian Harloff. That is Mara Knopic. Peace out. That was it. That was the interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're joining us for the first time on Collider Video, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, do all that stuff. And remember, this is also on iTunes. If you're listening to iTunes right now, pull over and then rate it, subscribe it, do all that stuff. Hit pause on the treadmill for a second and let us know what you think about these shows, and we will continue to make more of them. You can find all your favorite shows from Collider on iTunes on the Collider Podcast Network. Thank you very much. See you next time.